Now, let's move on to another subject, shall we? The Prime Minister has claimed that extremist groups in the UK are trying to tear us apart. In a speech to the nation on Friday, you know, that dramatic coming out at number 10 with the lectern, Rishi Sunak said that democracy is under threat from extremism in the wake of Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan even, in an address to the London Labour conference yesterday, reacted to Mr Sunak's speech. Let's have a listen to what he had to say, shall we?
What we're witnessing is a concerted and growing attempt by some to degrade and humiliate minorities for political and electoral gain. And remember, we've been here before. We've been here before in 2016, when the Tories waged a disgraceful campaign against me and against us. We cannot let them try to do it again. As the poison of anti-Semitism and the poison of Islamophobia continues to infect our politics, now more than ever, we need to display our best values rather than our worst fears.
OK, right, so basically he's blaming the Tories for the rhetoric they use for creating the hatred and division in answer to Rishi Sunak's comments at that very dramatic moment on Friday night, which was like, he's going to call a general election. Oh, no, he's not. Rakib, what do you make of what you've just heard Sadiq Khan say there?
Well, I think he has a point, but I think he also needs to look in the mirror as well, if I'm being completely honest. I think that at times the Mayor of London has indulged in entertaining tribal interests as opposed to genuinely cultivating social cohesion in the capital. So I think the thing with me...
Can you give us an example of what you think he's done to...
Well, I think, for example, what I consider to be inclusive celebrations, for example, the New Year's fireworks, I think that they've been overly politicised, in my view, and I don't think that's right at all. I think it's irresponsible from the mayor to essentially promote very specific forms of political messaging when it comes to those inclusive celebrations in the capital. I think that more generally, Dawn, I was very disappointed by the response by mainstream politicians to the result in the Rochdale by-election, because I think that the Labour Party and the Conservatives, the idea that their political activities are motivated in the name of the wider common good, in terms of, you know, promoting national solidarity, that idea's for the birds.
Emma's frowning at me. Emma, stop frowning at me.
Sorry.
What did you make of what they have to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sadiq Khan does have a point, and because he's been on the sharp end of the rhetoric recently, you can absolutely see why he's got the right to say that. I think there are wider issues too. And I would say that it is important to say, in the same way that we said earlier in the programme, not all men, it's also not all Tories.
We all looked that.
So, you know, some of the Conservative Party have come out and said we definitely need to dampen down this rhetoric. This is not helpful. It's making everything worse. Others see some of the divisive rhetoric as and the culture war stuff as an important electioneering tool. I personally hope that they're wrong. I hope they're wrong for two reasons. First of all, I want the Tories to lose, and if that's how they decide to pursue...
It's a fairly safe bet, to be honest with you.
But also because I would like the Tories to lose and learn. And I think we would all do better if that tool does turn out to be blunt.
OK, the problem I've got with this is that the whole rhetoric, I mean, sort of like, you know, basically, Rishi Sunak kind of said in that very dramatic Friday night...
Emergency intervention.
Emergency intervention saying nothing. It was bizarre.
Well, he said a lot of words.
Yes.
Again,
mealy-mouthed platitudes at the end of the day, isn't it?
He gave me, what I found, he gave me the problems, which we're all very aware of.
Extremists don't like liberal democracy.
I mean, the problem with his speech that I have is who's going to make the opposite speech? Like, it wasn't a speech in which you had, here's my side of the argument and here's your side of the argument. It was everyone could agree with him, great.
Yeah.
But then what?
This was the problem. He gave me the problems, he gave us the problems. I mean, politicians really think we're thick, don't they? They gave us the problems, but they didn't give us the solutions.
No, and he's talking about robust policing, for example, when it comes to protests and demonstrations. We have the laws in place to tackle, for example, anti-Semitic chanting, the displaying of pro-terror paraphernalia. If that's taking place at protests, the police have the powers to intervene. And at the end of the day, people can talk about Sadiq Khan in terms of policing in London, but actually when it comes to Met, there's a model of co-governance, which is shared between the Mayor of London and the Home Secretary.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe the Prime Minister should have a strong word with his Home Secretary, James Cleverly, if he's not happy about policing in London.
Yeah. And why? Why did it take the Rochdale by-election for that dramatic Friday night statement to make those statements when really, you know, we've seen sort of like, you know, what is perceived to be anti-Semitic, you know, from the rivers of the sea, beamed onto Big Ben. We've had MPs scared, extra protection for MPs. We've had MPs targeted at their homes, their families threatened. Why did it take the Rochdale by-election to make these statements?
I mean, I think it was a culmination, to be fair to Rishi Sunak, not something I say very often. I know. I think the Rochdale by-election was at the end of a period of things that have been going on, which includes all of the things that you mentioned, threats from extremists in a number of different directions. We had, you know, MPs have been killed, including my friend Joe. These are very difficult, very, very divisive times. And I like, as I say, I couldn't disagree with anything that Rishi Sunak said, but that's sort of the problem, that if what you're saying is we need to come together, great. What do we need to come together to do?
And this is look, we all agree that the hatred that we're experiencing now, the fact that we've imported the problems going on in Gaza and Israel to the streets of Rochdale, quite basically. And we all hate this division and extremism, and we all want to work together to make this country great again and a better place to be. So why then do Rochdale elect someone, the most divisive, I think we'll all agree, politician pretty much we've seen in a long time, in the shape of George Galloway? He has the support of Nick Griffin from the National Front.
Yeah, but then the fact that the Prime Minister mentioned Nick Griffin, he gave Nick Griffin the most publicity he's received in the last 15 years or so, so I thought that was counterproductive.
Younger generations went, who's Nick Griffin?
I'd made the point, though, about, I think some of the commentary surrounding the Rochdale by-election has been somewhat simplistic. Now, what I mean by that is Rochdale, the constituents, 30% are Muslim. That means 7 in 10 constituents are not Muslim. And the reality is that George Galloway, he's not only able to be competitive in Palestine-focused Muslim communities, he's giving Labour a headache, especially with white British working-class voters who may be pro-Brexit and protectionist as well. If you see some of the things that he talked about in his electoral messaging, he talked about the open-air market being the heart of the town, the long-term future of Rochdale Association Football Club, talking about how local businesses are the lifeblood of local communities. So, and then people say, oh, but he's micro-targeting, he's tailoring his messaging for different communities. Listen, Labour have been doing that for a long time in my hometown of Luton, I can say that much.
Exactly. Unfortunately, we're running out of time on this.